So we just have been talking about social contagion on networks and how certain things spread on networks and other things try but then never take a foothold. Next we're going to maybe think about together on what are good examples of this. And maybe the number one classical example that's easy to think about is how Facebook got started. So Facebook spread out of a social network for Harvard students. That's a tight-knit group of students the same age or friends with each other. And as we explained, the network, there's a small part of the network when this was popular, and then it just went and eventually spread out, and now it's incredibly popular across the world. This is a good way for contagion to start, but not all contagion works out this way. Like the first social network I personally have been a member of is something called IVIV. That's a Hungarian social network. It's still there and still reasonably popular in Hungary. But unlike Facebook, it didn't actually spread out outside of Hungary and become popular across the world. Some of these technologies eventually vanish and no longer work, and others coexist, and multiple different technologies, and some people use this, some people use that, some people combine the two. And this is what we wanted to help you understand throughout the course.
So this is the sort of thing that firms think about a lot. I mean, Facebook is a great example. But in terms of trying to introduce a new product, actually many different new products, firms often think about how to market it, and in particular, who to market it to. Who do you want to try to get to adopt your product initially? How does their position and their social network affect whether your product is going to spread and survive or actually die out? That basically the whole area is called viral marketing. The question is, how do you get this going? And thinking about contagion on social networks is a really nice way to get it started.
And it isn't just high-tech stuff. I mean, even like, you could be convincing farmers to adopt new agricultural practices or people to adopt new public health practices. And again, it's this question of trying to find people who will start it out, and then maybe it spreads because people see what their friends are doing.
Yeah, and so actually there's been an analysis done of exactly this issue in terms of getting farmers to adopt new varieties of seed corn. Trying to think about exactly how you want to get things started so that the variety that is in fact better actually comes to dominate.
And sometimes, like, the innovation isn't even maybe a technology. Like, I mean, if I think about sort of how does protest get going in a politically repressive society, right? So how is it that 10,000 people or 100,000 people turned out for a protest on the same day? And that can't be, you know, everyone looking out at the whole population saying, I'm going to match what everyone does, because so far no one's doing it. You sort of need that sort of small group that nucleates around and it grows. And there, when people have done research on political protest, there's, you know, the role of knowledge about what others are likely to do plays a particularly keen role. I mean, it's true in technology also, but it, you know, you think if 10,000 people really show up to protest, I should join them, it'll be really good. But if 20 people show up to protest, well, I'll just get arrested. Right? And so it's sort of this thinking about what other people.
So protest is a place where you're targeting a special segment of the population. If you have a protest about an issue, you're trying to, you know, reach as many people who might be on your side of the issue to show up for the protest, but you're not targeting the whole population.
Yeah.
So this happens in technology too. Like some technology becomes common in certain segments, like, you know, certain companies or style of companies use certain products and other companies use other products. Or even, you know, in the US we use different system than Europeans in measuring distances. We use miles, they use kilometers, and we drive on one side of the road, the English drive on the other side of the road. There are all kinds of places where somehow there is a boundary between two technologies or two adoptions, and it stays that way. It stays that way for a long, long time,
right.
Maybe forever.
So it isn't actually like the one wave spreads and washes over the whole world, but you end up getting very long-lived coexistence. I mean, I guess, right, languages are a big example.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so I mean, it's sort of interesting to think about, like, when is coexistence going to happen? Like, what is it that causes the thing to settle down into a pattern of coexistence? And I mean, I guess I would say, you know, what's nice is some of these models, you know, earlier in the course have given us some way of thinking about, like, you know, when there's coexistence, there's often kind of a boundary between the two. But it certainly, I would say, is still sort of a mystery for in any given situation, you know, exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. So and it's interesting both about coexistence and which products or conventions actually survive and can coexist. part of what we've seen in other examples is that there's no reason why the product that's necessarily better actually is the one that wipes out everything else.
Right.
You know, coexistence of products where people just simply disagree about which one's better.
Yeah.
Or even when actually at the end everyone sort of agrees that something would have been better given the amazing popularity of the not so good product.
Right.
There is so much pure effect that it's easier and more natural
Right.
to use the thing that is less good.
Yeah.
Then we all end up using it despite the fact that the comparison is just clear.
Yeah. No, and so you can the wrong product won basically. That can happen. And I guess, I mean, it gets back to some of the issues from earlier in the course about like the inherent unpredictability of these things. That, you know, there is always the danger that, you know, you take any story, you know, the success of Facebook, the success of an uprising, and you say, here's why this was inevitable. Of course, it was never inevitable. There were often sort of a whole bunch of accidental decisions that play into that. And that's, you know, that's obviously what makes some of this very challenging to try to model.